Go.
We go. Okay. Thank you, Tanisha.
Thank you, Tabidi. My name is Bill Hansell, Youth Development Oregon. I'm going to present, next slide, please, on our community investment grants, which include, um, uh, which is for the first year of the 23-25 biennium, which ended in June 30th of 2024. The first slide here that you can see is the community investment grant goals. Increase youth engagement in and connection to school, reduce barriers and support access to services that improve youth educational outcomes, connection, and wellness. Increase youth participation in safe and welcoming programming in connection to positive role models, support and promote the well-being of youth through educational and career success. Next slide, please.
I can see it on.
Thank you. So to that end, we for the use of in this analysis, 64 funded grants were used in the analysis. There is an error on this slide. There were actually a total of 81 awards made under the CI umbrella. The initiatives in CI include Promise, Solutions, Workforce, Violence, and Gang Prevention. The category that is also an undercount in the total is Violence and Gang Prevention. Those grants were 9 instead of 8. The important thing for this analysis is that 64 programs were used in the analysis. The remaining 17 programs were excluded from analysis for a variety of reasons, but it had to do with quality of data at that time in terms of either something funky, what happened with the data report itself that I couldn't slurp from it. And then violence and gang prevention as a whole was excluded from this analysis. And that is because of they primarily report in aggregate in that way. And this data is individual level. Next slide, please. So as you can see, with that said, there were 8,996 youth served in year one. That number will go up when I include the other, approximately, still counting out, there'd be approximately another 8 or so programs to add to that. 7,159 youth served in Promise, 1,241 in Solutions, 596 in Workforce. The gender breakdown is that females comprised 56% of the population at 5,057. Males came in at 39% with over 3,500. Non-binary/other were 348, or 4%. And then gender that was unreported was about 60. So that's less than 1% or 1%. The race ethnicity breakdown, and this is interesting on this slide that I would point out is that Hispanic Latine youth were the bulk of who we served, 3,250, followed by white at 3,077. Then African American youth at 1,036. Multiracial, which is a category, if 2 or more and non-Hispanic, you're automatically included in multiracial. So, and that's the way ODE and the feds calculate it. There's some interesting numbers because we actually collected flags. So I have some information of how the Hispanic flag, if Hispanic Latino flag, no matter what other races might be included, becomes Hispanic Latine, and also the other areas if there's more than 2 races, even if Hispanic Latine is not flagged, it means they become multiracial. So certain other counts drop, like American Indian, also African American and Black sees some drop. So it's fun to be able to look behind that a little bit more in terms of how the roll-ups impact that. Next slide, please. This slide is a further breakout of gender by initiative. And it's kind of fun. I like the long bar there and the rocket shooting off on which is one of our programs there. But what you can see is that in Promise, the females almost double the males within that. And I think that's largely attributable to a couple programs that run exclusively girls groups. But then across the board, you see that pretty evenly matched in both solutions and workforce in the male to female ratio. Next slide. On this slide, I'll draw your attention to that this slide is actually different. I took the opportunity to provide other information in your handout. It's gender by race and ethnicity. So if you're curious as to, and again, if you look at that slide in the handout, you'll see that it is Latina youth that are driving the majority of females, and also then obviously Hispanic Latine population. In this one, what you'll see is the race ethnicity by initiative, and you can see the bulk of the Hispanic Latine youth served are in Promise, as are our white youth and as are African American youth. The numbers are evenly, or closer to even across the other two in solutions, with white and Hispanic Latino being the top two primarily served. Next slide, please. Here we have a distribution of the youth served by age. And you can see from this slide that it peaks at 11. Not included on this slide, but that was interesting to me. The average age of the youth served in community investments was 12.2 years of age. That's lower than I would have guessed in terms of the average age. And again, these things can be driven by certain programs that may report on a lot of youth and that are younger or serve a wide age range. So you can see 11-year-olds are the highest number of youth served in community investments at 937. And then when we move into the teenage years and older, 16 years of age comes in at 779 youth. The last bulleted point are youth that were unreported in terms of a birth date wasn't included. A lot of times in the year one, there will be less data included because grantees are learning it. And so grant managers work with them, and over time, the stuff that was missing in year one gets filled in year two. So when we analyze it, the biennial data, I would expect the numbers that are unreported to drop. Next slide, please. This slide here is a picture that supports some of the budget information that Cord shared. The top pie chart there is looking just at the Promise initiative because that's where Title 20 lives. And so you can see that, and this is not the percentage of the funds, but the funds that were used on the youth. So it's a count of youth under the funding. So Title 20, or our federal funds, were provided to 3,350 youth, or 47% of Promise. And then the general fund was 53%, with 3,809 youth served. When we look at the funding type by initiative, so this is now all of the initiatives included in CI, you see that the Title 20 funds drops about 10%. So it represents 30% of the total, 37% of the total CI pool. Of course, that number is the same, but the under community investments, the youth that were served with general funds are 5,646 or 63%. Let's see here. Let's skip over the next slide. This one is a kind of a fun one that combines data from both Molly, the re-engagement side and the CI side. So we'll come back and revisit that when Molly is done with her presentation. I think we may wait for questions until we're both presented, and then we can work as a team to happily answer those questions. So if you have questions, hold them, and I will turn it over to Molly Burns. Oh, it looks like there's a future ready slide there too. Is that you, Cord?
Yeah, hi, this is Cord Bucher. So I wasn't sure where to put this one because there's a lot of information about community investments and there'll be a lot of information about re-engagement grants, and we just wanted to kind of quickly acknowledge the Future Ready Youth Programs grants as well. We're not gonna, there's one slide which I'll talk about pretty briefly, and then I want to give Sally Deck a chance to maybe chime in if she has any additional thoughts. But just for some context, so these grants, the Future Ready Youth Programs grants, have totally different data collection. That data is collected by HEC directly from our grantees, and then we get data back from them. We're right now we've served about 1,341 youth in those grants in the first year of this biennium. That was across 29 different grants around the state. The median age for those programs is about 19. So that's just, it's serving a generally, I think maybe a slightly older cohort than the other grants, which is I think the intention. So that's great. These grants, just as kind of for folks who weren't familiar, Future Ready was one-time funding from federal COVID relief ARPA dollars. And these grants support essential employability skills, which are a range of what might also be termed soft skills development, plus paid work experience, job placement, job coaching, and industry recognized credentials for youth. And just highlighting this one because what you'll see in the next biennium with our job and work readiness grant is, I think, fair to say, an evolution of the Future Ready program. The demand for both the funding, the grant funding, and the youth being served by these grants really told us that we needed to sustain this kind of more robust workforce programming and evolve our work readiness grants into what will be known as the Job and Work Readiness Grant Program next biennium. So I just kind of stuck this in the middle because it's maybe a good transition and a little intermission between community investments and re-engagement. I would just see if Sally, if you had any other thoughts or comments you wanted to just anything you want to mention, and then I think we'll also be back to present more on Future Ready in the future.
Yeah, I don't, Sally Deck for the record. I don't have anything else to add. We have a tremendous amount of data, so if folks have questions, happy to take that offline and address those questions or any of the overlap, how the data that we have from Future Ready informed our creation of the new Job and Work Readiness Grant. So happy to talk further, but I don't have anything that I think needs to be shared now.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Yeah, I mean, there's some of this was pulled from I think a lot of really great, sort of insight that Sally's been gleaning from the programs and work. We've also been collecting data on wages paid to youth. Every grantee is reporting that. And I think that's, something we've done separate from what HEC has done. And so there's a lot here that I think Sally will be able to talk about in the future. I'll pass it back to Molly to take it back and move on to re-engagement, and then go for it. I'll mute myself.
Okay, thanks, Cord. Molly Burns, YDO Grant Manager and Re-Engagement Analyst for the record. Really excited to be here to talk about re-engagement and just to have a direct quote to kind of kick us off from in the voice of a youth in a GED program. This particular one is in the Portland metro area. And so, quote, there are so many people with different lives that all come together to do the same thing. It's like a new type of hope and motivation to do something you never thought you would ever be able to do. It's a lifeline and so much more. I think that today in the council meeting, we've heard a little bit about different aspects of re-engagement, the re-engagement of workforce convenings, which I think sets us up to talk about data. But I did want to first contextualize the re-engagement data, providing a little bit of context to the re-engagement system before we look at the year one data of this current biennium. So this is the correct slide, thank you. As many of you may already know, the state of Oregon is one of just a handful of states seeking to build a statewide youth re-engagement system. So not just focused on urban centers, but really looking at all regions and all corners of the state. So Oregon's very unique in this work still. And so the purpose of the re-engagement system, as has been discussed today, is to reach fully disengaged and unenrolled youth ages 14 to 24 years. And there is allowance in the law to catch youth in need of targeted re-engagement services before they fully disconnect and unenroll from school. The overarching system's goals are to reconnect the youth to education with the aim of increasing high school completions, so GEDs and diplomas, to strengthen access to career and post-secondary pathways for the re-engaged youth, and to build re-engagement collaborative networks to support community-based re-engagement efforts. So the needs, the resources across the state are very different, so that community-based lens is really important in our system. In this current 23-25 biennium, YDO, yep, great. There's a little delay here, I think, on the slides. So YDO awarded 36 re-engagement grants. 31 of those are for the opportunity grants, and those are the direct service grants. 5 of those are for the collaborative grants, where the re-engagement collaborative grantee are developing those local collaboration networks in their local service area, as well as helping YDO as co-facilitator of the re-engagement and workforce convenings that are happening across a wider geographic area in this state. Okay, next slide, please. And so if we look at the geographic distribution of the current opportunity grants, there are 12 opportunity grants operating in Multnomah County, and there are 19 opportunity grants operating outside of Multnomah County. And so on the screen, the counties that have at least one opportunity grant are shaded in blue. And by no means am I saying that the entire county is, that those re-engagement grantees have services across the entire county, but we do have some representation through the opportunity grants there. And so just for a moment, I'll pause to talk about youth disconnection in the state. So one of the measures that we use to look at disconnection is we look at the number and the rate of youth who do not finish high school with a diploma or a GED 5 years after entering. Okay, so the 5-year other than completer rate, as I'm sure that you may have heard us talk about it in the past. And so if we just look at the county level, Oregon had 10 counties with 200 or more youth who didn't complete high school 5 years after starting. And the re-engagement opportunity grants are in 9 of those 10 counties, with the exception being Coos County. If we take a look at the rate, which is also very important, we had 18 counties that were higher than the state average of 5-year other than completer rate. And this data set was 13.21%. So 18 counties higher. We have 8 opportunity grants in those counties and 10 counties that do not have the opportunity grants. So it gives you a sense as we're building this re-engagement system and we're bringing more and more people to the table where we're at right now. But if we go forward to the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of these re-engagement and workforce convenings, because by adding in those re-engagement collaborative grants, we have a couple extra coverage in green in a couple of counties. And by adding in the workforce readiness and future ready grantees, we have added coverage in the light blue as well, where we're bringing people together, doing cross sector, cross agency work together with really getting the youth service people together to talk about it. So we do have some coverage. And with the initiative that Hansell talked about earlier, with those tribal re-engagement and workforce grants, there's additional coverage that hopefully will have additional participation across the state. I think we're going to the next slide. Past that. Okay, so of the 32 re-engagement opportunity grants, 52% were nonprofits. And the others are listed there, which I will not read to you, and we can go forward. Again, just giving a little context. If we look at the current re-engagement opportunity grants, we can roughly categorize them into 3 different program models. So we have outreach service models, alternative learning models, as well as case management, academic and career coaching, and mentoring models in the system operating. Okay, next slide. We talk a lot about the re-engagement services, but as the grant managers are reading the activities, the services that the programs are operating, I just wanted to touch on 3 elements that are really coming up. Is that relationship building is important, personalized, holistic barrier reduction, meeting the youth where they're at is important, and really connecting to the youth's why for returning back to education in very innovative, creative, different kinds of techniques and ways. But these are just 3 common elements that are working for youth in these re-engagement programs. Okay, so are we to the data now, I think? That was just a little bit of background. Okay, we can go next slide. So let's take a quick look at year 1 of this biennium's data by the numbers at a glance. And age at start date, the largest share was 16 years, followed by 17 years. Youth enter re-engagement programs across the entire year from July until June. And so this is capturing their age at the start date. And for any returning participants, it would be the program year start date for this particular graph. Okay, and then we're going to move on to, I think we're at race and ethnicity. Okay.
We'll let Glenn
No, that's fine. And so the largest share of participants, white at 51%. And oh, I wanted to point out that you all should have either, Melissa put it in the chat, and for the folks in the room, you have the one pager with some of this data, and re-engagement is on the second page. So we've got the breakout by race and ethnicity that we're tracking every year. And I'm not going to read the numbers because you've got that on your slide. And the next, please. So gender breakdown, it's kind of interesting this year. We've got, I think it'll be interesting when we look more closely at the biennial data as some of these things shift, but we have male at 50%, female 46%, non-binary other 3% not reported at 1. And next slide. All right. I'm going to look at yours. So we polled the youth for the program's survey interview, asked the youth to better understand them, what their history, their background, their experience with education is, and the reasons that they left school. And then the programs also, to better understand the youth, ask them why they're entering into a re-engagement program. And so in this data set, their reasons for leaving, their top 3 reasons relate to school, credit deficiency, school social environment, and lack of academic support, followed by home life and health. And for their reasons for entering, the most frequently cited reasons for entering, the top 3 relate to school. So they want to complete either with a GED or a high school diploma, the education setting, as well as credit recovery. And those reasons are followed by personalized supports. So individualized services, academic and career coaching. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about the impact in the year 1 data. Next slide, please. 377 re-engagement participants completed high school with either a GED or a diploma. Next slide, please. And one thing I thought would be interesting to bring to this talk was this is the first biennia where we asked the grantees to gather data on how long the youth were out of school and program entry. And so then when we looked at that with those that completed, this is actually the 200 who were out of school at entry who completed in the re-engagement data is actually a little bit higher than the percentage of youth that were reported to us as out of school at program entry. So we had 120 youth who had been out of school for 4 months or longer when they came into a re-engagement program and completed their either their diploma or their GED. That's followed by 80 who had that nearer time out of school. So either they were on a 10-day drop list from the school or all the way up until 3 months. So 80 completed in that. Irregular or inconsistent attendance. You can think of that as a youth who maybe had multiple drops. Maybe they had a prior history of a long time out of school. It may be just some kind of attendance where they're occasionally coming. And so we had 82 youth in that category, and none. There were 50 youth who completed with that. And it doesn't mean that there was no disconnection. They may be in a residential program where they're in education, and that re-engagement program is wrapping support and services as they're either there or transitioning into like back to their boundary high school, for example. And then 45 of the ones who completed is unknown. Yes. So that is what I have for you, and I think Bill might have a final slide.
Yes, thank you, Molly. Bill Hansell, Youth Development, Oregon. Will you go to slide number 41, please? What I want to show here is the age distribution, age at start, distribution for 41, please.
That's
What does it look like?
She's got it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Is it in the
Mhm.
PowerPoint or in the deck?
Yeah.
It looks like this one if you're looking.
No,
at
no, no.
Yeah,
I want to see slide 41, please, if you can.
Is this not it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
What does it look
It's the age distribution that Molly presented, age at
It
start.
has the people working, building the engine.
like?
So all of these pictures,
Yeah.
by the way, are program pictures from Klamath Falls to Hood River, Lane County, of youth really in action.
Let's see it, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to show just a couple slides. This is age at start at 14 to 24-year-olds. If we go to my age distribution slide, which is number 27.
This one is going to. Put on our little sheets.
Maybe hard for us to.
Okay,
So on
all right.
sheets, It's easier. It's
Let's
easier
just go to number 29. Yes, so, yeah, so that is not showing on the screen any longer. I don't know what
I
happened.
can try to share this.
Let's just go to the slide 29. I was trying to show the two slides that alerted me to because one is age distribution of 6 to 24-year-olds and the other is an age distribution of 14 to 24-year-olds. I thought, let's look if I just took out the 14 to 24-year-olds in community investments. So in this slide here, that's now, you'll see that community investments is the top slide or top chart. The bottom chart is re-engagement. You'll notice that they are almost identical. The chart on the left is when I mapped the re-engagement age distribution over the community investment distribution, and you can see the shape is almost identical. So would the numbers be if you controlled for N size, which because CI has more youth than re-engagement, the numbers are somewhat inflated. This is just a fun slide just to show you of how we talked about CI serving, the average age is 12.1, but when we look at the older youth being served, it almost maps over directly on top of the age distribution on the re-engagement side. So anyway, that, I don't know what we're going to take away from that, or if there is any takeaway other than an interesting correlate of the shape of the distribution. So wanted to share that to geek out on data. Anyway, Molly and I would love to answer questions if there are any.
I'll just real quick, Brian Detman for the record. I know we've got like 10 minutes, and so given the power outage, probably we would have loved to have this up on the screen and for y'all to see it in a slightly different way. Online, we're probably able to see things a little bit better than those of us in the room, but thanks so much to Bill and Molly. Yes, we've got room for probably just a handful, 2 or 3 questions. We would have preferred to have much more time, but now we're dealing with this.
The building is closed.
Yeah, and the building, please.
So since this is a time scheduled for public comment, do we have any public comment?
Yeah,
Well,
let's see if we have public comments first. And then I want to make a request before we conclude.
Yeah, good question. Melissa, let us know.
There haven't been any yet. I've asked in the chat when we got sort of nowhere back. We don't have any.
Can I make a comment to BD Lewis here while we're waiting? I'm enjoying this information as I'm sort of teasing through it, trying to, I'm wondering if it's possible the next meeting we could give a little more time to this because of the power outage. Is that possible? Or I know, I know Bill and
Yeah,
Mark.
to be Brian Detman, yeah, we can look at the schedule to May or June, we have things that we'll want to cover, but yeah, if that's what the council wants, you know, want a little more time and we can, I think these PowerPoints were sent out to you, so we can make space.
I do have a comment to BD.
Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
Mara Rogers with the council. I really want to just highlight something and the importance of why I really advocated for YDC to get on House Bill 3199. Because Molly, you shared the 3 top reasons why kids disconnect were school, and the 3 top reasons why kids reconnect are school. And what I hear the narrative of youth, what I hear systems narrative of youth is somehow it's the youth that disconnects from school. And somehow it's the family that's shamed or responsible for disconnecting. And for me data here, it's really powerful to say our systems maybe are the reason kids are disconnecting from school. And so I'm super appreciative that there'll be a voice at the table to protect against shame and blame for kids. So there's Molly's editorial for the day.
You know, I think this data, the BD Lewis, is really useful to help shape the systemic policies or insights existing within the schools that could be a preventative measure. Because if we know we're investing resources and we're hitting a certain contingency, right? And here are the reasons why they're, for example, stepping out, then, you know, how can we have a conversation around, okay, here's why they're stepping out. And then when they come back, you see the reasons and what do they need? What are they looking for? But what are the, you know, I'm not saying anything, I think anyone in this room doesn't know, whether it's family, whether it's, you know, all those things that you outlined, Molly. I think that is really the key point. And I'm looking at, you know, what is that key um, uh, doppelganger, if you will, age range, which is 14 to 18 or 14 to 19 that, you know, really seem to, you know, mirror one another. And so there are so many factors that are just, what does it mean to be a teen, right? I mean, I have two daughters that were teens, and we had, you know, you deal with the issues people deal with teens, but, you know, I just like to talk about some of that. And I want to pour through the data some more, but I think this is really important. So I'm going to shut up, but it's.
Council member, I just wanted to ask credit efficiency. I don't know what that means. Could you, under top 5?
Sorry, can we turn our computers so we can see Cam? Maybe?
Oh, my questions are, but on the handouts, there's top 5 reported reasons for disengaging under re-engagement grants.
Yeah.
And on the top one, 48% reported disengaging for credit deficiency. Could you explain what that is?
Yes, and I'm actually looking for a story, which we didn't really have time today, but it's a story of a youth who experienced a tragedy. They going into high school, they got behind in credits. Then they moved from one local public high school to another. They were bullied there. And their senior year, their counselor told them, you don't have enough credits to graduate. Credit deficiency. Maybe often in re-engagement, we see 6, 7, 8, 9 credits accumulated in junior and senior years. So this individual has said, you don't have enough credits to graduate. You're going to need a GED. They got connected with a re-engagement program. In this particular case, it was a career coaching program to get them back on track. So that's credit deficiency that we commonly commonly see.
Yeah, Bill Hansell for the record. So it means you're short of credits based on your age or grade level. It's an important contributor to, the freshman on track indicator, which is a data point that ODE collects. And if you're 3 credits behind their calculation of the credits you should have accumulated at each grade level, then you're considered credit deficient.
Wow.
Brian Detman for the record. Well, maybe I can just go stand up.
Thanks, Brian.
Oh, look at me. I'm between our two fabulous presenters. Let's give them a round of applause. Tamidi, not trying to take over for you, but I'm just going to say I know that we're coming up on the end of the time, and what a full meeting. I appreciate everybody in person kind of sticking with things, and our presenters. I will let Tamidi close us out, but I'll say quickly, I mean, action items, I think, going forward are for us to work on a draft of a letter from the council that we can include as a part of the testimony for the budget presentation, and then to have some additional conversation as a part of a council meeting around the data. So we can plan for that for June. I don't know, Melissa, if there's any public comment.
No, there is not.
Doesn't appear to be. We're going to have some more. We're adding some more folks to our council list right as we go, and Parsa as chair, and just things are happening, moving, and shaking. So that's the roundup that I think is for me to do. I'm going to just quickly say to staff. Did I miss anything? No. Okay. Kabidi, do you want to close this out?
Okay,
Right?
there's a comment. Sorry, this is.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it to Kabidi.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say thank you to everyone, and that concludes this meeting, and I cannot wait to follow up with the business for the next session. And Bill and Molly, I'm gonna outreach to you because I do want to chat with you a bit because this is great stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
To be, this is Melissa with the radio. Did you officially adjourn us?
Oh,
It's
I
okay.
would like to officially adjourn the meeting of March 8th.
Me too.
Thank you.